Okay, this format for the meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcements, a coffee break, and then our main speaker. Our first speaker tonight is Jaime. Where's Jaime? All right, Jaime.
Hi, Jaime Alcoholic. Hi, Jaime. Hi. So, what it was like, I grew up in an addict home. I have a sobriety date of August 20th, 2019. And I grew up in an addict home, and as a kid, I used to always tell myself, I'm never going to do what my mom did, lock herself up in the room and forget about us. We're heating up microwave dinners and taking care of my sister. And then I got moved with my aunt, and then I'm taking care of my cousin. I'm never going to do meth. Yeah. And then growing up, I never did, and then I started drinking in my 30s. So I had my first drink at 23, and it was okay until it wasn't okay. So later on in my 30s, I meet my husband, who thinks he's a normie, and wines and dines me. I'm like, oh, this is wine. Start off with the sweet, and then, move on to the Pinot Grigio, and then it's like way too many calories, so then I'm on to the hard stuff, the vodka. And so never did I touch meth, but alcohol found me in my 30s. And I got injured at work, was medically retired, and, you would drink too if that happened to you. And you would drink too if your husband started a business and was never home, and you felt like you were a single mom starting all over at 35. You would drink too if you were molested as a kid and your mom was in her addiction. It was pour me another drink, like they say. And so that lasted for a good 4 or 5 years. I like to say I took the accelerated program. I hit my rock bottom quick. And I'm very surprised that I didn't stop at some of the things I did. One of the things we were talking about dinner before we came was how when I started in AA in 2019, I came in bitching, and I came in on my own. First of all, I was just desperate. I was so full of shame. I was crying every morning, reading. I didn't even read all the 30 messages that my husband texted me. It was like, I can't. There's just pages and pages of what I did the night before. He's recording me, sending it to my mom. I'm like, what's my mom going to do, And, she was an addict. Like, what? But after so much time, and then my kids, I have adult children, and a 6-year-old, and, she's like, Mom, you were weird, After so much of that, the shame kicked in. And then I found myself crying every morning, like, I don't want to drink today. I'm not going to drink today. And then sure enough, by 3 o'clock, I'm drinking again. So I didn't have to come in on a court card. I didn't get a divorce. But it was the yet. It was going to happen if I kept on that path. I don't know why my husband didn't call the cops on me while I was beating his ass. All I wanted to know is why he was crying about it. Like, can't you just shut the fuck up? Stop being a wuss. God, won't he shut up? Stop sending me all these messages. Just let me drink. And he kept telling me, can you just stop at 3? Stop at 3. Don't you think I fucking tried that? I tried to stop at 3. Like, I couldn't stop at 3. And I tried to do just like our book says. Our book says, we switched from, scotch to brandy and blah, blah, blah. And, I tried all of it. By the end of my drinking career, I was Instacarting Irish whiskey. And my daughter, who was 19 at the time, was grabbing my bottles, and I'm in the backyard drinking by myself, listening to some country music, and stop hiding my bottles. I was affecting her because my husband was gone working. He only got it when he came home, which I'm sure that's why he never came home. But, I hear so many stories about it being different, where they did get the cops called on. And the only one calling the cops on me was my neighbor because I was still playing music at 10 or 11 o'clock at night in my backyard. But just seeing the shame in their faces and stuff, it was enough for me to finally, for some reason, I call that my first spiritual awakening, to finally go get help. And I didn't know about AA because my mom never worked a program. My mom did drug diversion. So I was so desperate that I got my insurance card and called the back, behavioral whatever, and I'm like, I'm an alcoholic, I need help, I can't stop, please help me. So they gave me like 10 numbers, and I went down this list, and finally, it was the very last one, and it was Thelma McMillan. They said, you can come Wednesday for your intake. I'm like, I'm coming now, bye. And I got there, and I stayed, and I did my whole intake the same day. It took about 6 hours. I needed to be told what to do. Just come to a meeting, or actually come to Thelma first. Come to Thelma every day at 9 a.m. You're going to sit in that chair. You're going to listen to this. You're going to listen to this person. You're going to do some meditation, which I hated, by the way. The lady next to me breathed too hard, and I was like, oh, my God, what am I doing? But anything. You could tell me anything. You could tell me whatever you wanted to. I was willing to do whatever it took to stay sober. And I remember that day right now, and it's so crazy to me because it's like 4 years and 7 months later, I want that feeling back where I want to be willing to do whatever it takes, because sometimes, life, I get in the way of life. I want to control things. Why is my husband bringing home a dog when we already have 3 dogs and now we have 4? And it's like, how dare you? How dare you? And then when I'm irritable and discontent, what do I think about? I think about that drink. That drink is going to ease my anxiety. It's going to ease the depression. It's going to take care of everything. But then I got to play the tape. What's going to happen, Jamie? You're not going to ever stop at 3. You're going to want another one tomorrow, and this whole cycle is going to start again. So what I did was at 3 years, I got sponsees. I have a sponsor, a wonderful sponsor. And having a sponsor is number one, obviously, because when I try to make decisions, and when I say, Kelly, I'm driving to Bakersfield to go catch my husband, who might be having an affair at 1 a.m, it's probably not a good idea, Jamie, So I love having a sponsor that can get me back into reality because the insanity comes back even when I'm sober. Today I didn't realize I was going to be the 10-minute speaker, and I thought, oh, wow, I really needed to be the 10-minute speaker because I have been very irritable and discontent. And when I have a resentment, like, how dare you do something that I say no to? And now I'm picking up puppy pee off my floor, and I'm like, I'm gonna want that drink. But the only thing that keeps me from drinking today is calling my sponsor, coming to a meeting, sharing what I've been through and how I got here, and that no matter what, I stay in the middle. Because every morning I do a morning meeting, and that's what sets my day. Because when I start trying to get in the way and call the shots and try to play God, it's not going to work for me. And I noticed, and I never thought I was a control freak at all, but when I think about it, I'm like, oh, that's Jamie getting in the way again, I learned that, I can set boundaries, but it doesn't mean everybody's going to stick to it. And also I got sponsees at year 3, and it's a miracle. How in the hell does helping someone else help me get out of my head? Through all this, a sponsee could call and say, do you want to read the big book today? And I want to say, hell no. I want to go to bed and cry and sit in my misery, And getting in the book and reading with them has kept me sober this long. The sponsor, the sponsees, the meetings. I can't just do meetings. They say, meeting makers make it. Yeah, not for me. I would have drank by now if it was just meetings for me. So I have to have the sponsor. I have to have the sponsees. I have to have the meetings. I have to have it all, just like when I drank. When I drank it all. I have to have it all. Like, I'm still looking for more right now. I'm still looking for that next spiritual experience that I can find. I feel like right now I am going through a spiritual experience, and I'm just trying to stay in the middle and grow through what I'm growing through, or grow through what I'm going through. So if anybody's new, I suggest getting a sponsor that you can trust and talk to, and going to meetings. So thank you for letting me share.
All right. Ready? Ready? Okay. Okay. Now our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Joe.
Oh. Joe Fitzgerald, alcoholic. Anyway, I'm glad I'm here. Oh, God, we went to eat earlier and I'm stuffed. I'm miserable. You know what I mean? I'd rather go and eat afterward. Anyway, I'm glad I'm here. Some of my family are actually watching me on Zoom. You know, and hello, everybody. God bless them. And, 2 years ago, they gave me 80th birthday party in Chicago. There were 50 people, and my nieces and nephew and everybody said, Uncle Joe, we are so lucky. We've had 47 years with you, which is true. You know, I am so grateful because I should have been dead at 31. You know, I'm one of those, I'm unsuccessful at suicide. You know, I tried to kill myself a lot, but the big one was when I was 31, and I came back to my West Hollywood apartment, and is there music going on? Oh, the baby. That's the newest newcomer. Oh, God bless. Stay here. They come 40 years later, that little one will say, oh, I remember I was at my first AA meeting. You were the speaker. It's like, give me a break. You know what I mean? Yeah, I love all those babies. I'm a great, great, great uncle. They keep popping out, all these little girls and boys. It's unbelievable. All these hairdressers. A lot of hairdressers. They come out now with a comb and brush. I'm the original hairdresser. And now that my family's listening, we have our first house cleaner in the family, little Ricardo. He's going to be, I think he's going on 3. Since he's been walking, he got his own vacuum cleaner. I've sent him feather dusters. He's got his own broom and dustpan. Little Ricardo, he loves to clean. You know, you never know the gene. You never know that gene that's in you. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I would have missed all that. You know, one day he'll be the president of 3,000 cleaning ladies working for him, where I'm the only president and the only employee. You know what I mean? Been cleaning for 50 years. Anyway, born February 12th, 1942 in Chicago. And, I don't know about you, but, I was premature. I was 4.5 pounds. I could not wait. I wanted to get out of there. I just wanted to get out of there. I told my mother in sobriety one time, Ma, I know why I was premature. And she said, what do you mean you know why you were premature? I said, yes, because I realized that I was going to come to Alcoholics Anonymous eventually. So I had so much stuff I was going to have to do before I got to AA, so I wanted to get started, you know what I mean? And I come flying out, and I have an older brother and a younger sister. And my father worked on the railroad, and I still remember his coveralls, his starched hat. We used to help him open the legs. They used to starch those coveralls, and we, as kids, would open the legs so we could get into them. And my father was so excited because now one day he's going to have his own little baseball team, he was hoping. And, and my mother said, the only difference between you and your brother is when I come flying out. Remember, I come flying out. I happen to have a big pink bow in my hair, and that was not popular in the 40s. And my mother said, you lived up to the expectations of that pink bow. We talk a lot about God in AA, and I had some trouble with God at some points in time, but the reality is God created this very pretty little boy. He gave him real big eyes and real long eyelashes. God gave me a high-pitched voice. I wore long dresses and heels, and I would twirl a lot. I love twirling, and it created a lot of problems for me, but it was welcome to the real world, you know what I mean? So anyway, the way I looked and the way I sounded created a lot of problems for me growing up, and you know what? My sponsor, Jeannie, often talks about we have a coat of armor, and I still believe this. God gave me a strong coat of armor. I kind of got through it, you know what I mean? Nothing, when I look back, nothing real bad happened, but, I got through it. And the reality is I learned very early in that family, we lived on the north side of Chicago. And we were 3 kids. My sister was the younger one, and I learned in that family that I realized we were poor. And a lot of people were poor in the 40s and 50s. I hate to say that sometimes because I came from a great family. Everything that my father went to work, alcoholism was not rampant in my family. I had a stay-at-home mother. She was always there when we came home from school. The house was always clean. Our clothes were always clean. And there were days we didn't have food. It's part of the real world. But I learned in that family that we were poor, and we didn't have, like when the carnival came, I wanted 25 cents. Believe it or not, to go to the carnival, and I don't think my mother had 25 cents to give me. So the reality is I got a paper route. Now, there's a lot of young men here, and I'm a promoter for working, I don't care how long you're sober, and if you just got sober today, get a job, you know what I mean? And work 8 hours, I don't tell women to do that. You have to do what you have to do, but a man, get a frickin' job. Work 8 hours, and one thing about AA? You don't realize that, but I'm telling you the truth. It helps you, even though your head is driving you crazy, it helps you get out of your head. For no other reason, maybe that 8 hours. And I knew that we were poor, and I got a paper route in the 4th or the 5th grade on the north side of Chicago. And from that very day until, which was yesterday, I worked at a client's house on the beach for 8 hours. I have never been unemployed all my life. And what happened is on the north side of Chicago, my parents got divorced when I was in the 5th grade. And we weren't being evicted, but we were being evicted because someone bought the building, they wanted our apartment. That's the only reason why we're asked to leave. And a woman that's divorced with 3 kids, in those days it was very hard to find an apartment. No one wanted to rent an apartment to a divorced woman with 3 kids. And what happened is the Bridgeport Housing Project stepped in at the last minute and found us on the south side of Chicago, the Bridgeport Housing Projects, a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, townhouse. They were all little townhouses. For us, that was a step up, believe it or not. It was I have no problem with the Bridgeport Housing Project. We had a little yard in front, yard in the back, 2 bedrooms upstairs in the bathroom. And what happened is we came to the south side of Chicago. I got another paper route, and what happened at one point in time, my brother got a job at the A&P supermarket. He came home one day and he said, Joe, they're looking for a guy to carry groceries at the A&P supermarket. And what happens is they already had 2, they need 1 more. And carrying groceries meant people would buy their groceries, we put them in the cart, and then I'd wheel the cart to the parking lot, help them take them out of the cart, and then they tip me, and then I come back in the store for another client. So what happened is I started making a lot of money. When I look back, I evidently was making pretty good money. And I had regular clients that would actually wait for me after they bought their groceries. They would be waiting for me to come back so I could take their groceries to the cart. And what happened is I looked around that our little house in the Bridgeport housing projects, and I realized we didn't have a lot of stuff. You know, to be honest, we didn't even have a pop-up toaster. That was one of the first things I ever bought. We had this metal thing with holes, with wire, and it was on an angle like this. And I think it had at least three slices of bread, four the most. And my mother didn't have a stove, high, low, medium, oven with numbers on it. You know what I mean? We'd just kind of turn on the gas, and you look away like a half a second to see if the water's running at the sink. You turn back, and literally the bread's in flames. You know, it's just in flames. And you run over and shut the gas off, and you kind of cool the flames down. And the only thing I remember about toast is standing at the sink with a knife, scraping the bread, because we did not throw the bread away. We put butter or margarine or whatever and jelly on it. We ate it, you know what I mean? And then I realized too that from the movies, what happened too is I walked in that we had the furniture store on 32nd and Lithuanic, 32nd and Halsted called Major Appliance. Evidently, I had gone. I love furniture stores. Probably I was in there a lot, just looking, you know, always looking. And I don't know what possessed me, but I said to this man, who must have been the owner, one day, you know what, I would like to buy my mother something. What do I have to do? I didn't know about anything. And the guy looked at me and he said, you make payments. And I thought, my. And he said, you make payments. When you get it paid, I'll give it to you. And I thought, God, that really turned me on. I thought, man, that is wild. It was like something new. And believe it or not, that was the first thing I bought, the toaster. And then I learned from the movies that people had that little decorator in me. People that had better things were end tables, lamps, and a coffee table. I bought one table at a time, one lamp at a time. I bought curtains. I bought our first nice kitchen table, all chrome and Formica, 6 chairs. It looked like a new Cadillac in our kitchen. It was so beautiful. You know what I mean? Those are the things you remember. And anyway, it was great. And what happened is I played with girls a lot. You know, I didn't have a lot of male friends. You know, and I was a very pretty little boy. They called me names, and people threatened to beat me up, and nothing bad really happened. But I had one male friend, he said, you know, I fought a lot of fights for you. You know what I mean? The guys always want to beat you up, and I had to beat them up, you know, whatever. But that's just the way it was. So what happened is in the 8th grade, I remember my first male friend. His name was Donnie. I still remember where he lived in the Bridgeport Housing Project. And I really wanted, I kind of liked Donnie a little more than being a regular friend. You know what I mean? I didn't know a lot about anything else, but I did like Donnie. And growing up in Chicago, the reason why I like to talk about this, I think it was the beginning of my alcoholism, because I was going to need something eventually. And what happened growing up, remember, and thank God, that's one thing about my parents, my father. They sent the 3 of us to Catholic school, and the Catholic school, it cost a lot of money in those days. And my father he hated it at times, but he was willing to pay that extra money to give us a better education. And when I look back, really, to be honest with you, it was more rules and regulations in which we conformed to them. So anyway, but Donnie, growing up, you know, I didn't know any. I played with girls a lot, didn't have a lot of male friends. And Donnie, we had girls in Chicago. Now remember, I went to the Catholic school. The only thing I knew about girls is they wore babushkas in those days, and a good little Catholic girl, remember, don't ask your mother or grandmother how they wore their babushka. You may be very disappointed, but the good little Catholic girls would actually wear it like this, no makeup. She looked like a little nun, you know what I mean, with her habits in the old days. And you know, little Susie, she's such a good little Catholic girl. And a girl that was not so good would actually have it back a little bit. She'd have it tied in a knot on her chin. And I knew she's a little bad. You know, now when I was growing up a little bit, there's a good possibility she kissed a boy. You know what I mean? She was kissing a boy. I think that was a mortal sin, believe it or not, when I was growing up. It was terrible. But a bad girl would actually have pancake makeup, eyebrows, and lipstick. She'd have her hair in a ponytail, have it tied way back, and have it tied in her mouth like this. She'd be coming down the street, Lithuanica, and I would see that bad girl coming down the street. Somehow, I was terrified of the bad girls. I would actually cross the street and go on the other side. I learned a little later on in life that actually I wanted to be a bad girl and do all the things they were doing, you know what I mean? And so we ended up in a junkyard one night, and the bandit truck, he says, that girl, her girlfriend wants you, you gotta go. Remember, I've been wearing glasses since second grade. My glasses in those days were thick, and the lenses were curved because my eyelashes were so long, so they wouldn't rub up and down on the lens. And I am a short little guy. I didn't get this tall until second year of high school. And what happened is we ended up at I was willing, I didn't know about the big book of the 12 and 12, but I was willing to go to any length to be Donnie's friend. And we ended up in the junkyard that night, and I showed up, and he and his girlfriend stayed in the front of the truck. The girls brought little candles now. They've been around the block a couple of times. And me and the Jolly Green Giant, girl was so big and so tall. And I don't ever remember anyone wanting me so bad as that girl was so excited to see me. She was so a happy camper, you know what I mean? And I was terrified. And she went running to the back of the truck. Well, by the time I got back there, they blew their candle out. I got somewhere near her. I knew she was there somewhere. I don't ever remember a room being that dark. It was so dark in there, I could not see anything. And I am low to the ground now. I'm a little boy. I knew I was kind of somewhat what I was supposed to do, and I started to prepare myself, and I thought, God, I've got to check it out and see what's going on in here. I am low to the ground, and I just start feeling around that truck. I touched something. It was a little furry, and I let out a scream. I said, oh, my God, there's an animal in here, you know. And the rest is history. We got dressed real quick. We came out of the truck. Donnie went that way, those girls went that way, and I went that way, and I've never seen any of them since, you know. I never did get myself in that situation again. And what happened is eventually I came out at 19, and, anyway, I found alcohol, and I started smoking cigarettes when I was in the 8th grade, and I was running with a group of rich Lithuanian girls, and this group of guys wanted to get to know this group of girls. They were all dropouts, but they all worked, the guys. And I was a magnet for girls, you know what I mean? And actually, my first drug of choice was dancing. You know, thank God, I look back, thank God I didn't drink and we weren't doing drugs. Jitterbug dancing was real popular, and my brother had taken dance lessons. I asked my brother, Pat, teach me. We had a 4-poster bed. And I told my brother, Pat, teach me how to dance. No, he never taught me anything, you know, really, the reality. So I put those rock and roll records, I still remember holding my hand onto that 4-poster bed and just trying to figure out how to get these legs to move. And finally, I figured it out. I became the Jitterbug King of Bridgeport and the Cha-Cha King, and those girls were wearing all that chiffon and those petticoats. I would twirl them around. I didn't tell them. I would fantasize me being in those dresses. And, I could just see those girls were just rippling, and the good Catholic girls would put their hand, don't do that, don't do that. And I'd say, honey, get your hands off of the dress and let them see it. You know what I mean? And we had a ball, and I realized when I was dancing with the girls, the boys were looking at me too. You know what I mean? So it all worked out. So eventually, I dated my last girlfriend, and eventually what happened is I came out, and, I came out on the streets of downtown Chicago, and I became a hustler. I became a free hustler because, and then eventually one of the hustlers took me to, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a gay bar. Took me to my first gay bar, and it was downtown. I still remember the name, the front page. I remember that guy, I'm going to take you to a bar, and he took me to a bar. I still remember those doors looked like the kingdom of heaven. And he opened the door. Remember, everybody smoked in those days, and I remember all the smoke coming out and the music playing. It looked like there were 500 guys in that bar that night. And I thought, I remember breathing, oh my God, I'm not alone. These are my people. And, I ran with it. I just started drinking and no drugs. And, in gay life, it's men, sex, and booze, and no in between. And I just ran with it. And eventually, if you come from an alcoholic home, eventually you find an alcoholic. I've met a lot of nice people, but eventually I met Norman, and it was the best part of that relationship was breaking up and making up. When you make up, it was fabulous. You know what I mean? And we set up housekeeping, and we'd beat each other up. We'd throw each other out of moving automobiles. It was a great relationship. You know what I mean? If you can't hit them now and then or whatever, isn't that the truth? Well, look at we've been talking to our first speaker. Anyway, it happened. So what happened is eventually in 1967, we decided to move out here. We put our stuff in storage, and then we came out here in 1967. And when I came out here, I didn't tell them, but I said, I'm through with physical violence. I was done. And so, to make a long story short, eventually that Christmas, I would hit him a few times too. I tried to kill him one time. I remember choking him real good. Thank God I decided to stop. I could have killed him in Chicago one time. But the reality is, in 1968, my aunt made me go back. It'll work out. And I end up going back, and then once more I was on the floor and he was on top of me. And that's when I got a job at what happened is I got a job when I first came out here. I came out here on a Wednesday. My aunt lived at Beverly Glen and Santa Monica Boulevard. We rented a single apartment, just happened to be some single apartments over there. I walked to the Broadway department store. I walked into the department for a job. And the woman said to me, what are you looking for? I said, I'll take anything you got. She hired me. She said, the guy in the stock department just left. Could you start tomorrow? I said, great. I start working at the Broadway. The next day, my aunt was so mad. You just got here and you're working. But the reality is, what happened is that relationship, it just didn't get any better. And eventually, I went from the Broadway department store to Hughes Helicopter. One of my guys had gone from Broadway, got a job at Hughes in the paint department, and he said, Joe, they're hiring in the paint department at Hughes. I said, I have any job that I have ever gone all my life, even if it was a nickel more, I always made more money. So I went to Hughes. I said, God, John's working in the paint department. He said, you're hiring, and maybe I could get a job. And the guy looked, he said, oh my God, I just filled the last job in the paint department. And he said, but I see on your brochure that you used to be, I didn't tell him I'm trying to become a hairdresser again. He said, I see that you were a hairdresser. And I see that if you were a hairdresser, you have to have a steady hand. I said, I don't know how he figured this all out. You know what I mean? But he said, we need a sandblaster. And I said, oh, I don't know about a sandblaster. I can't put hairdressing and sandblasting in the same field. He said, but you know what? I think you could do it. He had confidence in me. And so what happened, I became a sandblaster. And that's why I forgot to talk about this the other night. Working 4 to 11, it saved my life. When I look back at that, I wasn't drinking. My aunt used to call me in the morning, go to the beach. My apartment was on 10th. I got an apartment on 10th in Montana. And when I left, after I left my lover, and that put a cure on my drinking, because sometimes we worked till midnight, 1 o'clock, so I only had an hour to drink. So, it worked out real good. The only thing I got to say about Hughes, though, it was fabulous because I was so terrified about going there. But I remember I had my own room, and we had machines where I put my hands in, and sandblasting and glass beating. I had hearing things and goggles on with a breathing mask. And by the time I'd come out, it would be horrible. But around 4 o'clock, around 4:20, they would turn on the pressure. And I would be in my room around 4:20. They'd say, turn on the pressure. And they hear me periodically in the evening going, ah! Ah! The damn thing, the dust and beads. And I had my hand in these machines and was just going crazy. And I'd come out finally. I'd take it off. And I'd come out. I could hardly breathe. And all the guys would be standing outside my sandblasting room. I'd say, oh, my God, hi. What are you all doing here? Oh, Joe. We've never had a sandblaster quite like you. You know what I mean? And they were real. Knowing that we never talked about me being gay, or I went out to drink with them once in a while, and no big thing, but they were really nice to me, very nice to me. And what happened eventually, I ended up on 10th of Montana when I left that apartment, and left my lover, and left the cats, the dishes, the silverware, everything. I was just out of there. And I ended up in a single apartment. I remember getting a bed from the alley. My aunt gave me a lamp and a table and a TV. And then what happened within 1 week, my friends that had migrated out to California came to my rescue. I believe that's when I crossed the invisible line, if there's such a thing. My friends turned me on to marijuana, which I'd never done. They brought me diet pills, which I've never done. I've never had a diet, but they brought me diet pills to just, when we drive to Palm Springs early Sunday morning, we went to Palm Springs a lot. All my friends were decorators or hairdressers, and we were off on Sunday and Monday and whatever. And what happened is, and then my aunt came over one night with a bottle. I still hear those bottles tinkling. And my uncle was working in the real estate business, got a lot of booze. She'd pour it down the drain because he was an alcoholic. And she said, I'm going to stop pouring it down the drain. I'm going to bring it for you. She needed Al-Anon. She said, you drink all that beer and those mixed drinks, you get bloated and a lot of gas. She said, learn to drink it straight. It's better for you. And I still remember, I hated straight booze. Remember, it has a bitter taste. And my aunt said, you will acquire a taste. And I thought, oh my God, I couldn't believe she said that. But the reality is, if you're new, when Aunt Helen left, I like quantity, not quality. And that's when I start drinking out of this. Now I'm smoking that marijuana. I'm so out of it at times. Thank God for seeds. I never learned how to clean marijuana. I would be so out of it at times. Sounds were very important, late 60s, early 70s. Sounds. Those seeds, I swear to God, I would be smoking marijuana. Now, it looked like baby cigars. I never learned, the rolling machine, I never cleaned them, so when I rolled them, they came out big. You know what I mean? And I remember one time my friend said, God, how you doing with that marijuana? I said, it has no effect. They said, what do you mean it has no effect? Well, they were at my apartment one evening. We were going out, and we were passing a joint around, and I took the joint, and then I went, and then I still remember, that's with a group. They all went, oh. I thought, what happened? Joe, you got to inhale it. I remember them, inhale, keep it in. And then finally, I'm almost dying of breath. And I let it out a little bit, and oh my God, I realized, oh my God, this is working. You know what I mean? And just like this. Sounds, late 60s, early 70s. I'm so out of it at that time, I'd say to myself, did I put my drink down? I don't know what's happening sometimes. I put it down, it made noise, especially when you're out of it. It was so loud. Oh, I put my drink down, it's okay. And this was good at the side of the bathtub. I love bathtubs. You know, and sometimes I was so stoned and loaded when I got in the bathtub. I was still in the bathtub at 2:30 in the morning listening to Barbra Streisand and Edie Gourmet records. You know what I mean? That's how fabulous it was. But you know, if you're new in it, this is not normal. A little bourbon on the rocks and vodka on the rocks, it's just not normal. I always say, if I ever went back to drinking, hello, you know, 3 of these a day, I think maybe I could make it. And you know, the most important thing you got to remember, though, is I hope if you're new in AA, when I came to AA in 1975, 33 years old, I'm 82, the reality is I knew who I was, and I knew the kind of alcoholic. I didn't have that label until I finally realized an alcoholic. And what does a chicken have to do with sobriety? Nothing but alcoholism, because my aunt told me I'm so drunk. I told you I can barely stand. I'm still in that single apartment. But if you coat your stomach, if you eat some food, you can drink more. Well, that made sense. I thought, well, then give me that chicken. I turn on that little stove, that broiler. If you're a good alcoholic, you throw that chicken in the broiler. And if you're a real good alcoholic, you always come to about an hour or two later, and you're laying on the kitchen floor, and that black smoke is billowing all over your apartment, you know, and eventually you turn off the gas, you get up, and you know, it was funny when I would go to Safeway to buy chickens, I would actually hear those chickens saying, don't take me, don't take me. They wanted to be eaten, not cremated, you know what I mean? And Anyway, so it was insanity. And eventually I got my, a normal dinner for me, my friends were, and cooking, thank God. I think cooking saved my life. When I got to AA, I was 85 pounds wet with a lot of hair. But the reality, I remember this one Sunday morning, I come to in my single apartment. During the summer, my friends that lived in West Hollywood say, when the bars closed, they'd come to my place because they knew if they went home Sunday morning, they woke up, they'd never come to the beach. So I'd wake up at my apartment, I'd have 6, 7 guys sleeping in my apartment, 2 in the tub and 2 on the kitchen floor, whatever. But I remember one Sunday morning, I came out of a blackout, and I had this big stainless steel bowl. I had bought a 12-pound turkey at Safeway, and I remember coming out of a blackout, and I thought, oh my God, I got all this dressing, what am I going to do? And my friends are already smoking marijuana. Joe, let's go to the beach. They could care less if we're going to eat. I said, no, I got to get this bird in the oven. And I didn't know what to do. Well, I had a rubber mallet. I thought, man, I got a rubber mallet, and I didn't have a stove you could put it on the side. I just start putting it in the back and the front. By the time I rolled him in the oven, he looked like 26 pounds. He was a very gay bird. And I rolled him into the oven. We went off to the beach. We drank and smoked and did marijuana and took pills all day. We came back to my Santa Monica apartment. I had a long, narrow Formica coffee table. In the late 60s, early 70s, even when you had beautiful furniture, we were always sitting on the floor. We were always sharing things. It was a beautiful thing, you know what I mean? And before I passed out. But the reality is we were sharing things that we're all sitting on the floor. If I squint my eyes, that's how I saw the late 60s, early 70s, just kind of hazy. And I remember I heard it was like an explosion. But a gay explosion is not real loud, when you're that out of it. It was like poof. And I thought, it did get my attention. You know what I mean? I thought, what is going on? And the next thing I know, my friends are all sitting around. There must have been six or 7 of us. The bird come flying out of the kitchen. He landed on the edge of that Formica coffee table, and he slid in the middle. And all my friends, I remember them going, wow! And I thought, oh my God, you never question anything in the late 60s, early 70s. I thought, man, this is some kind of new bird. It just comes out when it's ready. Well, thank God. So I got up, I got the plates and the silverware. He blew his ass off in the kitchen on the wall and the stove. It was a fabulous meal. We had a fabulous meal. And that's not normal cooking. You know what I mean? And eventually I got my hairdresser's license. Eventually I moved to West Hollywood. Eventually I got nicer furniture, bought a Cadillac, and I'm the one, and eventually what happened is the hair business, I kind of came to one Saturday. I did not know I was in the beauty shop, but I felt a little swirling motion, and I thought, oh my God, we must be having an earthquake. You know what I mean? I felt like I was moving, and then I heard a woman saying, Mr. Joseph, Mr. Joseph. I came to, I thought, oh my God. I'm in the beauty shop. I have a brush in my hand. It's going around and around. And I heard this woman saying, Mr. Joseph, my beehive is a little bit on an angle. A beehive, some of you, there's so many young people here, they don't know. A beehive, we had a lot of big hairdos in those days. A beehive, a woman 5'2" would get a beehive, she'd be 6 feet by the time we get through with her. But she said, Mr. Joseph, my beehive is a little bit on an angle. I said, well, God damn it, don't worry about it. Just turn your head a little bit, So that was the end of my hairdressing career. I am the only hairdresser in Beverly Hills that went from doing hair to cleaning beauty shops. And I went from cleaning beauty shops to cleaning private homes. I worked for the rich, not so famous. I got turned on to one of these rich ladies. I used to wear these huge, I can't do it anymore because I'm too old, but huge, I'm still cleaning, but huge feather dusters on rollerblades, and I wear these huge feather dusters, and I rollerblade my way through these huge mansions, and I made a lot of money, you know what I mean? And I am the president and the only employee. The only thing I could tell you about that business is if you have, I remember I was in the Pacific Group, and I said to Clint Hodges, being a house cleaner has never been very popular with the gay people. When I meet a guy, he's an executive, Avis Rent-A-Car, and he said, well, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I'm a house cleaner. House cleaner. Boom, they're gone. You know what I mean? It's like, too bad. Screw you. You know what I mean? But the reality is, Clint said, Joe, we got to have house cleaners. You know, so I told Luke, Ricardo may become one day too. You know what I mean? So I've been cleaning houses for 50 years. I have a job I love going to every day. I have friends in the Palisades and Malibu. They're driving their Porsches or Ferraris down Pacific Coast Highway on a Friday. Now I've been working for these people for 40 years. And they had that Ferrari, they had all kinds of cars. I was out there washing their car. I power washed the front of their house doing this. And they're barreling down, they make six figures. And they say, I hate my frickin' job. And Joe, I'm coming down from their $1 million house in Malibu or whatever, and I'm coming down Pacific Coast Highway, hating my job, and I look up, and there you are on a ladder, washing these cars, and they said, you always look so happy. I was so happy. I was doing what I like to do. They said, you really were an inspiration this morning when I saw you, and that's the way it works. So what happened is the end of a new beginning. Did I miss a lot of things? New beginning. And if you knew in AA, when I went to West Hollywood, all my friends were wearing those little spoons. Well, I like quantity, not quality. It's like, hi, I would like to try. No, Joe, keep drinking. You don't want to do drugs. They frowned on it. So thank God, this spoon saved me a lot of headaches. But the reality is I just jumped into alcoholism. And what happened is, and I could tell you a lot of things. It was sex, drugs, and whatever. And what happened is, I'll tell you one incident, and passing out on the floor a lot. Now I had beautiful furniture. I can't tell you how many times I was redoing wallpaper because of the kitchen deal, and sending my drapes out constantly for being recleaned, because when you burn all that smoke, it affects a lot of things. So whatever. I remember. I'll tell you one thing. My neighbor came 1 week before I did. I was leaving. I know what the 12 step were before I got to AA. I had 6 steps, and I learned this was how alcoholism, you learn to move the step up. I learned to live on the second floor. Because if you live on the first floor, when you bring people home, for some reason they leave the door open. I don't know why they do that, but they do. So I always lived upstairs. Hopefully no one would come up to the second floor, come in my apartment when I was passed out. But I remember one time I was so drunk, and I'm going out. I didn't go out till about midnight, 12:30, because I didn't have a lot of money in those days. I drank all the hard liquor at home. I drank a lot of beer when I went. Beer was 75 cents a bottle when I got to AA, and I tipped them. I was a big tipper. I gave them 25 cents. Unbelievable when you look back how things were. But I remember one time, I'm leaving my apartment. I slide down the steps, because if I fell, I'd have to go back up, redo my hair and everything. So believe it, that's just the way it was. You do what you have to do. I'm sliding down the steps, and my neighbor, who lives on the second floor, Don Riley, who came to AA 1 week before I did, not knowing I'm an alcoholic, he's an alcoholic. He was crawling up the stairs. I remember looking at each other, oh, hi, Don, hi, Joe. And, it's normal. You don't think, when you look back, it's insanity, and you don't think about it. So the reality is, what happened is the end of a new beginning. I'm running. How's we doing? I still got 10 minutes? Oh, good. That means 15 to me. The reality is, the end of a new, I could tell you a lot about drinking, and wetting beds a lot. And I remember washing my sheets on a Saturday. And the lady that was living with her brother down below, nice lady, didn't mean anything by it, saw me washing my sheets. Guess what? Sunday, same stuff. It all happened again. I'm rewashing my sheets, coming down. I remember when I walked past her, she said, freshening your linens. No, that really got my attention. I thought, I just did that the day before. And we talked about, she didn't mean anything by it, but it did mean a lot to me. I got to the point where I opened my dining room window on the second floor, would throw my linens out on the side of the building. Then I go and pick them up, put them in my car, and later on wash them in the laundromat in the building. It's just, you just keep moving up another notch. And what happened is, really, the end of a new beginning is my father, And my mother was an alcoholic. Eventually, my mother got sober at 70. She was sober 4.5 years before she passed. And, you know, she was a great gal. She married 3 more alcoholics after my father. My father never remarried. And what happened is my mother used to come with me when I was speaking, and she was the first one with me when I spoke with these props, and she thought it was great, but she always said, Joe, I'm not ready to stop, but I love you being in AA. I was there when she had her 2 strokes. I was there, I bought her last 3 dresses before she died, and you know, those are the things you get to do, and be an uncle, and be a brother, or you know, to your sister or whatever. I mean, I am just so grateful about all the things, all these nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews. There are so many people, when I look back, and I've tried to help a lot of people in AA, you know, they come and go and whatever. And, you know, I started answering phones at the Westwood office when I was 6 months sober. I was on fire with AA, and we had Junior's Deli across the street. All the waitresses in Junior Delis knew me. Every other Sunday I was there. Oh, that's the boy that answering the phone at the Westwood office. He's always helping alcoholics, whatever. And, you know, at the end, our big meeting was Wilshire, Normandy. I'd go, I had a 73 Coupe de Ville in the old days, and it was the most beautiful Cadillac, because I actually did my house cleaning. The trunks, you could have 10 dead bodies in the trunk. The trunks were so busy. I'd have my mop bucket, vacuum cleaners, rags, everything. And I remember when I first bought the Cadillac, I pulled in one of my clients' driveway. She wasn't so rich, and she said, oh my God, I can't believe my cleaning lady has a better car than me, you know what I mean? And but I jumped into, you know, AA and getting sober, and what happened is the end of a new beginning. I'm running out of time, but what happened is my father had was here one Christmas. It was 80. He went back to Chicago. It was 20 below zero. He called me from the luggage. He said, Joe, I'm going to retire tomorrow. I'm going to work. I'm going to retire. He said, your brother and sister are busy raising their children. They don't have time for me. You'll have time for me. He said, I'm coming to California. I'm drunk 7 days a week now and I'm working. If I retire, I'll be drunk 24 hours a day. He said, I know your lifestyle and I want to be part of your life. And, you know, that was the best time I ever had, really, because I hated my father for what my grandmother went through at the end of her life. Then all I can tell you, too, if you're a spouse or someone in this room, living with a practicing alcoholic is hell. Living hell. I don't care how you look at it. In my book, it's a living hell. It could have been me living with them. But the reality is when he came out here and he stopped drinking, I realized that wasn't the same person. You know, he was a great guy. And what happened is I bought him a bicycle. He eventually stayed with me 3 months. He got an apartment at Park La Brea. And it was very gay looking. My decorator friends and I, he went away for a couple of months and he said, I want my apartment to look just like yours. He didn't know any better. And so my decorator friend, he had money. He left us booze, and he went off somewhere, and you know, they know everybody, and we decorated it. And he had like butter yellow carpet and palm trees and a big crystal chandelier and printed. His bedspreads were so printed I couldn't even see. They were so gay looking. You know what I mean? And I used to call him, Dad, how you doing? Joe, I can't talk. I'm giving another tour of my beautiful apartment. The women at Park La Brea thought his apartment was so beautiful. He was the only man on the 8th floor. They were bringing their lady friends over. They wanted to bring casseroles, but I think he was interested in a younger woman. But the reality is, what does that mean now? 5 more minutes? Okay. Put your hand down. We need to control this boy. Anyway, to make a long story short, he died. I went back to Chicago. I was visiting my mother. He had a massive heart attack. He died en route to the hospital. If God would have said to me, it's either you or your father, I would have said, take me. Because when I did that suicide in 81, had they not come and found me in my apartment, I didn't show up at the beauty shop. And they called. The one lady knew the manager's phone number, and he found me in my apartment. He didn't know what was happening, but they said, is Joe, he's late for work. Is his car in the driveway? And he said, yes. And he said, go up and see if he's okay. And he came up to my apartment, went through the living room, down the hall, and he said, he's sleeping. Then he came back to the living room, and he noticed there was an empty bottle of vodka and all these pills all over the floor. And he came back, he said, well, you know what, there's an empty bottle of vodka on the floor, and he's got all these pills laying on the carpet. I don't know what that's for. And they came, 4 people came, got me out of my bed. I still remember them dressing me. I was so out of it, I couldn't see anything. I kept saying, leave me alone. No. They put my clothes on, drove me to Beverly Hills, walked me for one day up and down the alley. They kept me moving. I remember coffee spilling all over me, and they finally fed me and fed lunch, and then 2 guys took me up to their house in the Hollywood Hills, fed me dinner, and brought me back to my West Hollywood apartment around 8 o'clock that night. Had they not found me, the doctor said I would have died. But the reality is that, Father, if God would have said to me, it's either you or him, I said, he's going to buy a car now. He's so happy. I bought him a bicycle for Father's Day, a blue bicycle from Sears. I remember I put it in front of the door. I bought him he used to go play tennis every day with a brown paper bag and with his transistor radio and his tennis racket and his balls. I bought him that white leather Spalding bag, a blue bicycle. He walked right around it, came to my car and said, well, where's my Father's Day present? I said, Dad, you just walked past it. He turned around, a bike? You got to be kidding. I said, a bicycle. I bought you a bicycle. He rode it every day to farmer's market, every day until he died. And anyway, so I was so angry with God, I couldn't let him go. It was a terrible 8 months, but I remember I came back to my West Hollywood apartment once again and crying. And I know my Father's up there. I don't know where heaven is. I don't know where it is, what it is. God, I don't know who God is. But I tell these people too, if you're having a bad day, God is pretty busy nowadays with all the stuff going on. But what about your grandmothers? I have an Irish grandmother, an Italian grandma, Grandma Carvello and Grandma Fitzgerald. I know they love me a lot. And, you know, my Uncle John died of cirrhosis of the liver. That's why I know I'm an alcoholic. But the reality is I cried out that morning, God, someone help me. Dad, Graham, Uncle John, help me. I think I'm losing my mind or having a nervous breakdown. And that's when the next day, I was at a client's, I called AA. And the rest is history. I jumped into Alcoholics Anonymous. I love being sober. In the old days, the old timer said to me, are you an alcoholic? And I said, well, I don't know, maybe 98%. And he said, well, what's your last name? I said, well, my last name is Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald, definitely you're an alcoholic. It's like, oh God, so I'm in, you know what I mean? And Donald Madden was the man that 12-stepped me. He answered my 12-step call, and I drove over to his house. I didn't know what alcoholics looked like. He had a beautiful home in West Hollywood. He had a 75 Eldorado. When I pulled in his driveway, I had a 73 Coupe de Ville, and I had nice clothes. He had nice clothes. And I was on a lower step. When you open the door, you know, when you look back how things are planned, but he's looking down at me, and he said, my name's Donald. I said, my name's Joe. And he said, you know, we don't drink. And I said, okay. And he said, well, he was just so nice about everything. He said, well, do you take any, funny cigarettes or pills? I said, I do. I smoke marijuana usually on my way out of my apartment, either that or I'm in the tub, 2:30 in the morning. He went to, And then I said, do you ever smoke funny cigarettes? Which I did. And then he went, and diet pills just to go to Palm Springs early Sunday morning. And then anything else? I said, no. And he said, we don't do any of that either. And I thought, okay, I was a little shocked, but I said, okay, you know, and anyway, it is. And I jumped in. And here's the most important thing. If you would put as much time and energy into Alcoholics Anonymous as you did into drinking, that's what they told me. My ears were open, I swear to God. That made sense to me. The hardest thing I had to do in AA was ask for that first commitment. And once I got that first commitment, and all my friends were newcomers, and those 1975 people didn't have Cadillacs, people that I would 12-step or people that I ran with, Joe, let's go to meeting in your car. When you came to the meeting in my car, you were setting up the meeting, you were making coffee, we were tearing it down, cleaning it. And then we went to Nibbler's a lot in Beverly Hills afterward. But you know, I jumped into AA and the pink cloud was dissipating. And I got rid of Donald Madden when I was 3 months sober. Great man, I could not deal with men. So I got Molly B, a little art lady in Beverly Hills, and she became my sponsor. And eventually the pink cloud was kind of dissipating. Reality was setting in. About 60 months over, things were not looking so great. I was unhappy, bad, and whatever, feeling like you sometimes. You know what I mean? On and off, like hot and cold water. I didn't have that until that period. And then I said, every time I go to these meetings, I hear these people from the Clancy group. They always say, come to our meeting, come to our meeting. And my friends in West Hollywood said, don't you go to that Clancy group, he hates gay people. And I thought, well, maybe you don't know I'm gay. I had a lot of hair, super Aquanet. I was very gay. And they said, anyway, so I ended up going to the Pacific group. They welcomed me with open arms. And, there were a few gay, they weren't talking, that did bother me a lot in early sobriety about people not talking about gay people. But it's like in AA, they say people. Now, they can't say men and women. I'm telling you the truth. I needed men and women. You got a sore on your hand? Yeah, men and women. I needed men and women to stay sober. And I got to tell you, all the straight people in AA, they said to me, we don't care what you are. Be yourself. And until the time I got to AA, and when I came to AA, no one in my whole life up to that point in time has ever said to me, be yourself. Only the people in AA. And now I've been myself so long for so many years, and you've accepted me. They've asked me to tone it down a little bit. You know what I mean? I got to close. Guys, I'm out of, wait. I got one more thing. This is the big part. If you have any trouble with God, I had my own problems with God. I didn't give it up. I don't know who God is. But and look, God is in AA. No matter what's going on with me today, tomorrow, or whatever, when I come here, this room is full of miracles, and I hope you don't forget it. But the reality, I ended up in the Pacific group, and what happened is you got to do what people tell you to do. No one has ever told me to do anything to hurt my sobriety. People do care about me in spite of what my head says. But the reality is, Clint said, Joe, you got to go to the yard. You got to show up at the yard. And I said, I'm not going. I can't deal with it. And so I showed up at the yard. Turned out Clint did not come that Saturday. He was afraid there was going to be a problem. And I finally went to Clancy and said, Clancy, I'm here. Well, welcome, But he said, you got to play baseball. And I said, I am not playing baseball. I have never played baseball my whole life. Remember, I'm gay. I'm a cleaning lady and ex-hairdresser. I'm not playing baseball. He said, no, I don't usually buy people gloves, but I bought you one. And I said, that was not the way I felt. I said, oh, yeah, I'll make a hat out of it. I'll put a veil and a few flowers. I am not playing. No, but one thing when Clancy, hey, dummy. And then he said a few more words. Get out right field. So when Clancy gets your attention, you better listen. Right field, I'm going. I went running out the right field. I remember turning around that Saturday. Clancy here, no, keep going. He wanted me to go to Santa Monica. You know what I mean? He couldn't bear me. It was so true. He had a few gay people in the Pacific group. They were locked in the garage closet. I heard him, let me out. I thought, thank God I'm not in there. You know what I mean? But the name of the game is, I got to sit down, but the name of the game in Alcoholics Anonymous, even after 49 years, is to take action. And that's what we all do. Any given day. I always put my hand up. I always closed my eyes because I was terrified of getting hit by that goddamn ball. A lot of hair, a lot of super Aquanet. If you cannot see it, balls actually whistle. I hear the ball. Oh my God, he always hits in right field. Drove me crazy. And it would come out to right field and it'd go over my head. I had so much hairspray and so much hair, it would kind of create a little draft. And I'd passed, and I'd run after the goddamn ball. It was just ridiculous. I was running. I was tired. I was getting tired playing baseball. And one Saturday, unlike any other Saturday, bases, we were all out there. I heard a ball coming out. I thought, oh my God, it's coming. Here it comes. But this Saturday, unlike any other Saturday, I felt a little nudge in my glove. I went, oh! Oh my God. It was so powerful. It almost knocked me over. Oh my God. I felt something in my, oh my God, I opened my eyes. I thought, oh my God, there's a ball in my midst. Can you believe? I could not believe it. One of the biggest miracles in Alcoholics Anonymous. And bases happened to be loaded that Saturday. Those suckers were running real fast. Dust and dirt was flying all over. Clancy happened to be the pitcher. And I remember when the dust, I was beside myself. And Clancy, when the dust kind of settled, I remember jumping up and down saying, I caught the ball! It was one, I could not believe it. And then when the dust settled, Clancy yelled out, hey dummy, when you catch the ball, you don't stand there and jump up and down and say, I caught the goddamn thing, throw it. it was one of the slowest balls he ever waited for. Eventually, I never did catch another, and eventually I left the group. God bless you. Thank you for AA. Thank you for my sobriety.
All right.
Buy real estate, rentals. Not a damn deal.
Okay. I would like to thank our speakers, Joe and Jamie.